you're feeling down.
Welcome to the New York Times Popcast, your sweetest disposition of music, news, and criticism. I'm John Caramonica, pop music critic in the New York Times.
I'm Joe Coscarelli. I'm a reporter at the New York Times.
I'm John Summit, a DJ.
That is absolutely correct. John Summit's on the couch today. If you know John Summit, get excited. If you're not up on John Summit, let me get you up on John Summit. First of all, new albums called Comfort and Chaos. If you think about what's been happening in dance music and club culture in the last 3 to 4 years, you cannot tell that story without telling the story of your rise and the way in which you have been able to translate what to me has always felt like a culture that to many remains a tiny bit obscure or out of reach. You seem to have been doing an excellent job of bridging and bringing those sounds to huge audiences. And that's something that I think if you're paying attention to pop music like we are, we see it happening all the time. But somehow it's like weirdly still below the mainstream radar in the bigger sense.
Or maybe back below the mainstream radar because obviously
after a
EDM had its boom moment,
Mm-hmm.
it had its
Early
bust,
2010s. Yep.
and now I think a lot of people don't know, like, EDM's back?
Yep.
Question mark or exclamation point?
So tell us what, I mean, given that's a great opening, that's a great opening place. Over the last few years, because I know we're talking an 8 or 9 year career at this point, but really the last 3 or 4 is where we're really taking off. Is that the return of like big tent EDM in a true sense?
We'll see though, because there hasn't been like the huge pop collaborations. Like the first thing that comes to mind is like when You did the song with Justin Bieber.
Yep, of course.
And then that's when, you know, EDM really blew up. I mean, Calvin Harris was all over the radio and everything. But that's what made me, as a listener of electronic music, actually get away from it because it got too commercial, it got too mainstream. And then, you know, the clubs just stopped playing the music. Like from Chicago, and I was, you know, playing there from 2016 to, you know, COVID 2020. And then after COVID, moved to Miami because the scene was really popping during that time.
Sure.
Yeah, Florida, no COVID
No shit's
restrictions.
given. And then for me, like during that period, I was still very much an underground DJ, and I was completely broke. So I was going to Florida and playing those parties and stuff. I had to get by. Anyways, so yeah, I don't know if it's going to keep going that direction, but now it's definitely the biggest it's been since that pop. But it's been very interesting because the way I got into this was through the underground scene through Chicago. And I was never planning on making kind of commercially acceptable music and stuff that would ever be on the radio.
Interesting.
And it wasn't until lockdown in 2020 when I started adding vocals to my kind of underground beats. While like, I mean, my first big hit was Deep End, which was like Pete Tong's Essential New Tune. And like, this is before I was even like amazing with music theory and songwriting. Like it's technically a little bit out of key. So,
Which you figured out later or you knew at the time?
well, so I kind of did it on purpose at the time though, because it made it feel more underground to me.
Yeah.
Versus like, so there's this great remix of it, the side piece remix where the bass line actually goes in key with the vocal. And it just felt a little too, and this is not a dig on the track at all, but my sound wasn't poppy at the time. So I don't know, I felt like it gave it that little more underground edge because, yeah, we don't play things by the books, all of it. But now, you know, of course I have big, you know, songwriting melodies and really incorporate music theory. But I still think it has that kind of that raw, like Chicago house sound to it.
I'm curious about Chicago because obviously Chicago, a robust house music legacy dating back to the 1980s. When you were just starting out, were you learning about that stuff in real time? Was it stuff that you had already kind of taken in as a listener before you started making music? Or were you sort of like educating yourself at the same time as you're actually starting to make your own records? Because when I listen to this album, I hear 90s Chicago house in this record. Like to me, I hear that texture, I hear those rhythms, I hear the interplay of the vocals and the production. To me, that makes sense, but I wonder, is that something you were always setting out to do, or was it something that you were studying your way towards?
So it's a combo. So that's the only clubs I went to were kind of the more underground clubs, the Spy Bar, Smart Bar, and the underground parties, which are all kind of illegal stuff. And then all the DJs that play that are, you know, Chicago DJs like Gene Ferris, you know, played a party with Paul Johnson, rest in peace, and then doing a lot of stuff with Green Velvet eventually, who I actually had on my MSG show a couple months back, and he that was the first Chicago house record I ever heard was The Percolator.
So that was your gateway drug, so to speak.
Big time. I mean, that's like kids listen to that in high school and stuff, you know. And then That record came out literally the year I was born. And from there, like I don't know, the culture in Chicago just embraces it so much, and they're very kind of like an anti-EDM scene besides the big festivals.
Right.
It's because my gateway to electronic music itself was Lollapalooza, seeing deadmau5 back in like 2011. And this is just driving up from like this. I was still in high school at the time doing that. And but then, you know, you start going to like the underground parties and stuff once you really get in electronic music, because Lolla is only once a year. And yeah, so I always was producing just for that sound because those are the parties I played.
Sure.
You know? It'd be different, I guess, if I was like a Vegas DJ or something and really trying to get into EDM. But and then I just always loved it too. There's so much soul in it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like the records that you're making still have that aspect, whereas a lot of the sort of big tent EDM, whether it's festival EDM in the late 2000s into the mid 2010s, or European stuff, it can feel a little bit more clinical. The edges of it feel much harder.
Well,
and it feels like you're trying to make, in essence, danceable soul records.
Exactly. I mean, when you think of it, though, it's like all the songwriters and stuff in LA, Sweden, like they don't actually like go to the clubs. They're like very well musically trained.
They're not outside.
No,
they're
not.
outside.
And yeah, the mixes and masters are better. It's mastered perfectly and everything's so clean. But then the more polished it is, the more soul you lose. When you think of Chicago, you think of Jack and 909 drums. You think of like everything. There's swing to everything. It's there's so much to it that's more than just having perfect chord structures and stuff.
Talk to me about taking your interest in underground dance music and DJing late night, semi-legal, maybe illegal parties, and then going to college and being in a frat and DJing a house party or something more general interest.
So the way I learned how to DJ was playing in college. But then, so I guess I learned that simultaneously, where then on the weekends I would go to Chicago and actually go to the parties. So it took me a while to even be able to play these parties.
Yeah.
So I guess when you're talking about production, is that if you listen to my like first tracks that came out in 2016, I was still a college DJ at the time, playing, you know, all the big pop records, doing a bunch of hip hop,
party
EDM
records,
and stuff like that, you know, like that.
Like
so that's how I got my DJ chops.
Right.
But that wasn't under my DJ name. But then at home, I was making all the records for the parties I really wanted to play in Chicago and stuff too. So I always kind of recommend kids who DJ in college and stuff like, play to the crowd, play trap, whatever the hell they're listening to nowadays. I mean, now it's house music.
Right. That's funny. Yeah. What years were you in college?
2012 to 2016. So I vividly remember that was like Zed Clarity was like sophomore year. Then the Chainsmokers got really big, you know, like Roses, Closer, and those kind of records. So that's the stuff I was playing at the bars.
And that would go off every time.
Oh, yeah, every time. Because then you just get all the girls singing and dancing and everything, which I guess is what my records do now, too. So it is funny. I feel like we are back, but just not on the huge commercial scale it once was. But I don't think anything is now.
Did you have like a secret weapon record where like, okay, sure, you can play a #1 hit and everyone's going to sing along, but did you have something in the back of your mind where you were like, people might not expect to hear this, but when it comes on, they're going to love it?
Shiba-san, okay. It's this record on Dirty Bird, if you guys know Dirty Bird at all.
I know but I don't know that song. But I know
that was the label and sound that really got me into more left field house music. And I went to this one barbecue party, they called them, in Detroit. And it was a couple weekends before Movement, which is my favorite house and techno festival. I got a bunch of shows in Detroit this weekend, actually. But I went to that, and then there was so much sense of community and stuff, where it felt like going to a jam band concert where everyone's wearing the same merch and everyone knows each other. And there's a sick scene, and the after party scene was so cool. And that's what you lack in the kind of the college bar. It's not like there's no sense of community, I guess. Besides, I guess, whatever fraternity or whatever you're in.
But it's funny because part of what your question made me think of is, so actually your most recent release is not the album, it's a remix of Gas Pedal by Sage the Gemini.
Was Gas Pedal popping when you were in college?
Go off at your college parties?
Oh, big time. but like in a totally, so that kind of remix was kind of made for that kind of setting, but it was a totally different production at the time.
Right.
Because that's back in like the oral grime, like trap days, when it was like very, you know, aggressive. And those, I mean, I think those songs are becoming nostalgic now that they're actually having to come back. But
and also, I think those songs weirdly function very well on TikTok. They're so hook heavy, and I feel like TikTok kids of a certain age, like that's nostalgic, like it's old to them. They're like, it came out in 2011. It's ancient. It came out in 2011. But when I was listening to that remix, like my memory of the Sage the Gemini era was like, okay, it's one of the first times that I feel like there was explicit party rap that was pop, but somehow didn't totally cross over to like Hot 97 here. It was almost like its own little
That's why
ecosystem.
I still felt fresh when I was remixing it this year, because I wasn't even really planning on releasing it. I made it as a DJ tool with a couple guys, Subtronics and Tape B, for Coachella. And then played at Coachella, and then of course it would go insanely viral and everything. But I'm like, I'm not going to release this because I'm focusing on the album.
Yeah.
And then it was a couple months post album, and then we found out like the vocal and everything was cleared, and they're like, all right, like screw it, like
why not?
Why not balance, you know, this kind of more introspective album and everything with a fun party record? Because as a producer and DJ, I truly love doing both. I don't think you have to.
You don't have to choose anymore.
No.
You talked a little bit about like learning music theory and like thinking more about your top lines and things like that.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the process of making a record at this scale, like the songs on your album? Because to me, that's teamwork. That's
big time.
So talk us through, because I think especially a lot of our younger listeners may not totally understand that. If it says you featuring singer, it's actually a very complicated proposition to get to that end point. So can you explain a little bit what the building blocks are to get to that last thing, to get that final song?
I started making music in 2016 and had like 50 releases up till 2021. And I didn't work with a songwriter until 2021.
Yeah.
And his name was Stevie Appleton. It was on our record, What a Life. I did it with Guz. And then he ended up being help songwriting on 3 of the records, which is every single person I had on the album are all people I've worked with over the last few years.
Yeah.
On singles along the way.
Exactly.
Right.
So like an obvious one is Hayla, Where You Are. And then I met her through doing the remix of Escape, which she did with Cascade and Deadmau5.
Yeah.
And then the songwriter on that helped with us too with writing lyrics and stuff was Camden Cox, who's incredible. And I have a record Hungover with her. Basically the whole, I guess, album camp was all people I've worked with over the years.
In other settings.
And then now we're all friends now too. And that's why I wrote the whole album in London, because I mean, I just think it's so inspirational being there, and all my favorite electronic musicians and stuff over the years have been based out of there. And I think the singers sound great, and I think it provides a fresh sound instead of, you know, I don't know, there's not too many like American guys like me going over there and writing and working. So it is a very, very collaborative process. I'm of course the producer on the records, and then when it comes to the beats and everything too, but I think having incredibly talented people in the room, that's how you create great ideas, and they're great songs. And it's no different than watching a film and says directed by Steven Spielberg, and then you see the full cast and credits afterwards. That film wouldn't have been possible without the costume designer and the, of course, you know. So
are you often producing a full track before there's any top line melody written to it?
Oh, so if you want like the actual process,
break it down a little bit.
We love the inside baseball.
So the way I did the album, mostly I'd say 80% of it was that I was in London for a month, had like 25 sessions in 25 days. It was nuts.
Wow.
And I would go to it. So let's say it's me and Hayla, for example. I would show up with a 8-bar loop.
Okay.
So it could just be like 4 chords. You know, if you listen to Shiver, it's literally just 4 chords, and it's not fancy at all. Versus like Go Back, we have Eddie Jenkins on the record. He's like a classically trained pianist, so he can add a bunch of all the little notes in between, and with the different velocities and everything too. That I could do on my laptop, but it sounds so much better recording a guy who's classically trained live. But anyways, and then, you know, start writing some scratch vocals on top and start, you know, getting the melodies
with her in the room.
Yes. And then let's say like Camden or something along with us then starts doing lyrics and stuff on top of it. Right. So it's a whole process, and it's just so fun being collaborative like that. And then where I really just take full control is then once we have all of that down, all of the, I guess, the pieces to work with, then I just lock in for 8 hours straight, put the headphones on, do the whole production, the build-ups, the drops, all the little effects. Because I think once it gets to the very nitty-gritty stuff, that's when like everyone get out the room.
Right. You were sort of making the distinction earlier about kind of like big EDM records that are essentially scene records on steroids, right?
Yeah.
Versus a pop record that takes from EDM or is a collaboration, you know, Ariana Grande dance record or Calvin and Rihanna or whatever.
Yeah, We Found Love. Something like that.
So obviously, I mean, from outside looking in, I'm thinking that feels like a potential or maybe obvious next step for you.
Is what he's writing more like pop music and stuff like that?
Or at minimum, writing records in a manner that you write, but the vocalists are your Dua Lipas,
So
your Katy Perry's.
I was considering that, and I was talking this week about with my team because there is this one record just written that's very pop leaning, and of course the production I think is what makes it really pop or not, you know, because if I keep with my style of production, I really feel like I can work with anybody.
Yeah.
Because I'm not planning on ever doing a super pop style production. But I mean, if the vocal is hooky and catchy, it could be anything now.
And also, they might want to come to you. And that's really the thing is they may come to you and say, just that record that you have on the album, I want something like that. Like, do that, and I'll just show up to that.
Exactly.
That's the goal.
And there are a couple I'm talking to right now.
Yeah.
What is tough is that everyone is so busy and so in demand that it's one of those things. Like, I was looking at one like Calvin Harris album, and I was just looking. I'm like, how was this even actually made?
I know. It's like a feat of logistics.
Yeah. No, literally
it's
though.
literally like a logistical.
Especially if you want to be in the room together.
Big time. Yeah, because we're not going to do this remote or whatever, too. And it's like looking at like a DJ Khaled album. I'm like, how the hell did he get all these people in the same room? This is insane.
I mean, the other side of things is you cycling through a million different people. I think of something like The Middle with Zed and Maren Morris, which like I made a behind the scenes video about many years ago. Yeah. And one of the main things was like they had a top liner write it, sort of person with no public profile. They knew it was a smash. And then they're like, all right, who's gonna sing it? And they had
this is actually incredible.
And they had demos from everyone from Camila Cabello to Carly Rae Jepsen
and the demos was a cover of the top line they written.
Exactly. And so they have, you know, they had 15, 20 versions of it, and they're like, it's not quite right until they found Maren Morris, and then that's the one that becomes this huge smash. So it's like you could be shopping for singers as opposed to singers shopping for producer.
Yeah. So I didn't even start thinking about that till this year because I just started watching a bunch of like documentaries of how certain pop songs are made, and then I just saw one on this one Justin Bieber song. I totally forget what it was because I was listening to the Benny Blanco podcast. And he's like, oh, I wrote it with Ed Sheeran.
Right.
And then I'm like,
Love Yourself or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? This is a Justin Bieber record. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, these guys can actually recognize when it's not even like fits them.
Right.
Find someone else to think there's this one Rihanna. I mean, they all do it because the thing is it's all in community though, because then Justin Bieber could write a record and have Ed Sheeran sing it. It's not like,
or even we were talking about Calvin, like This Is What You Came For, written by Taylor Swift, sung by Rihanna.
That's the song I was thinking of. Yeah. And I was finding all this out. I'm like, how did I not know any of this? But then also because I've been in my bubble of the underground space and stuff for so long.
Sure.
And of course, as a small producer from Chicago, why the hell would I care about? Because I'm not even in that sphere. But now
you are, right?
You refer to yourself as a small producer from Chicago. I mean, I've seen the videos, I've seen the crowds. You just played the Garden. I mean, there's like, what are we talking?
And that's why I'm curious.
Are you just like?
Well, now it's clicking. Like,
when you sit down with your team and you say you're having these conversations, are they telling you like it's time to go mainstream, like it's time to cross over? Or are you saying, I want to do that, how do we get it done?
My thing is that, well, we all don't want to like go too commercial, too mainstream, whatever, too fast. And that's never really been a big goal. Kind of like, obviously what we're doing right now is really working and really love it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you never want to kind of like, because it wouldn't be for money or anything. For now, it's just, I just want to try being in the room with these people, these exceptionally talented singers and, you know, artists that I think now is the right time. But I mean, the last time I was really doing sessions was in November. That's specifically for the John Summit album. And I wanted my debut album to only be working with people I've worked with in the past. So it maintains kind of the sound. And if I just worked with a bunch of like pop people on my first album, everyone would be like, what the hell? This is not a John Summit album.
Or where'd this guy come from? If they hadn't been following the whole rise.
And also this is sort of like the DJ producer conundrum, which is that there's that blend of like, you can sell out Madison Square Garden, but there's still like a fundamental anonymity to how you move through the world. Is that something that you want to try to maintain as you get, because like, I mean, I probably couldn't have identified Calvin Harris on the street, you know, before those records, but now I can identify Calvin Harris on the street. Are you at peace with that direction if that's where it goes?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, like, do you want to be the front man, basically?
Yeah. So I do like it because I think I do well with it. And there are certain places where it doesn't feel like I'm very
anonymous
at all.
Right.
So, but yeah, clearly it's not like Justin Bieber or whatever level where I literally can't walk outside and I can't. But now, like, I mean, everything I kind of do, especially
don't go to the West Village. I feel like they're gonna know who you are.
1,000%. But even if I go out to dinner, it's like it's on TikTok the next day, and like all these, because I feel like normal people are paparazzi nowadays.
Yes.
Where
Yeah. That's true.
it's like you're getting like pepped 24/7.
Exactly.
Like I already saw a video of me like just standing outside getting coffee today. I'm like, how is this already online?
Already today?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. There was a funny thing going around recently. It was a video of you outside Gospel, a club here in New York.
Yeah.
Essentially, and you could tell us the story, but essentially getting dinged at the door.
Yep.
And like,
They're like, yeah, you're famous. Okay, yeah, you too, right?
And I say this, look, I am old now. Like I am in my late 40s, and I'm just like, if there's even like a 1% chance that I'm going to get dinged at the door, I will stay home.
You're just not even walking out.
I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to get out of dress. I'm not going to get out of bed. I'm not going to get dressed. But like, you literally, they were probably playing your records literally inside that room. What was that like? What was that like in the moment? And then what was it like to see how it traveled? Because that's really, if you weren't famous, no one would have wouldn't have trafficked on social.
Yeah.
So like, tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, I thought it was highly entertaining because that night we're just bar hopping, had zero plans or anything. And then one of my friends is like, "Oh, this place is like really fun. It's really hopping." I'm like, "Sweet, let's go." And then there's a big line, and then she's like, "Oh, I got this." And she's like, "Yeah, I'm with the famous
always one.
DJ." Blah, blah, blah.
She's like, I'm gonna go drop your name for you.
Yes, yeah, well, because I'm not going to do that. Like, that's so cringe. Like, hey,
Isn't that what a
do you know
manager's
who the fuck
for? Like,
am?
I got John Summit out front.
But I'm just out with friends that night though,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like it wasn't
work.
It's very exactly. It's very low key. And then I mean, rightfully so. The guy's like, "Oh, he's famous. That must mean he has money and he can pay." I'm like, "Oh, damn, he's doing his job well, fair."
Right.
And then she like started really fighting it, but it didn't work. And then I didn't think
Did
much
she
of
pull
it.
up a photo of you on her phone?
I didn't ask the team, though,
John
probably-
Summit net worth. Google.
That wouldn't help my case either. But then, yeah, so then the next day I saw the video went online. It was
Yeah.
like John Summit getting denied from gospel. And it was honestly so funny. And then I share it to my own socials. I'm like, gospel, I'm never going back, even though I've never even been in.
So you didn't get inside, to be
No,
clear.
I didn't. And then the gospel owner got involved. And it was just like this, it was a really funny thing.
Did they book you yet?
No,
Yeah, I was
I
going to
don't
say,
think I
you
would
should
play
have
there.
the make good should be that you have a residency at Gospel.
No,
If the bag is right.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible PR for them. I think they get to brag about it at the door. They're like, "Oh, we didn't let John Summit in. We don't let you in." Blah blah blah.
When was the last time before that you got dinged at a door?
The thing is, I like truthfully just don't go out very often. My
As
whole
like
life.
a guy.
Yes,
As a
normal,
civilian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I live like across the street from Club Space in Miami, and it's like one of the best clubs in the world. And so when my friends play, I'll go and stop by.
Yeah.
And because I play there myself, I don't think they're gonna ding me at the door.
They know you there.
But I guess when I'm in traveling in Europe and stuff, like Berghain. And,
Yeah.
What-
You didn't get into Berghain?
No.
All right.
Look at
Have
me.
you gotten into Berghain?
I've never been to Berlin.
All right.
Did you get into Berghain?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
I was with a local.
Okay.
With a
I
local
didn't get into
expat.
multiple places in Berlin. But I think I was like wearing a hat and I show up and I'm like speaking like loud English with my friend. 'Cause
Yeah.
I just played this club called Watergate. And so I was pretty lit. And then I think as soon as they hear you speaking English,
Yeah.
and just a couple, like it clearly looked like a couple bros.
They were just like, it's quiet. It's quiet. Send them home.
I need to give it like an honest try though next time I go.
Would you like to play there? Is that like on the bucket list?
I think so, but I know like I'd kind of rile up the internet a little bit. I know Skrillex played there, and that was like a whole big deal.
Yeah, I like the idea of you blaspheming.
But the thing is,
space.
obviously, there could not be any footage or anything of it. And
Right.
if I played, I'd try to play to the sound and play incredibly proper.
And you think you could, right?
Yeah,
You probably
yeah.
have
Oh,
you
yeah.
have that in your arsenal.
1,000%. I mean, that's all I was doing in Chicago and stuff, especially before 2020. And that's what I do when I play in Miami, when I do like the 10-hour sets at Space and play to 3 p.m. I'm not playing the big hits and stuff. I'll play them every now and then. But I can really kind of dig deep, which is fun.
What's your experience of Miami been as a person, not as a musician? Because you're from the Midwest, obviously.
Yeah.
I grew up in Florida.
Okay.
I know even South Florida for a Floridian is like its own planet. Like
Yes.
how has it been?
It
moving
feels like
there?
it's like an international zone, like international
Yeah.
territory. I do not feel like I'm in America at all.
Yes.
Because like even just like the politics and stuff, once you get out of Miami and go anywhere else in
Yep.
Florida, it's like a whole different country.
Yep.
But it's actually way more relaxing than people would think. It's way more of a health city than people would think too. Everyone's like eats healthy, works out, it's kind of like Vegas where it's like the tourists are the ones who come in, I think, and party like crazy.
Right.
But I'm also on the weekends, I'm always off traveling. So I'm only home the Monday through Wednesday.
So you have a quiet Miami life.
Oh yeah. I don't leave really my condo too much, but I got everything there. And that's when I really hunkered down and work on all my music.
Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, living in Miami and being proximate to the scene there, can you talk a little bit about community around American dance music culture in the moment versus what you see when you go to Europe? Because to me, there's always been a little bit of atomization segment, like it's like fractured a little bit in America.
Big time. The American dance scene is kind of frowned upon by the rest of the world because they see all like the EDC outfits and all like I'm wearing like a little candy myself right now.
I see.
Because I was handed this like literally last night. And which I love though, when fans give gifts and everything, it's amazing.
There's a girl I follow on TikTok who makes rave kits and like mails them out, charms and bracelets and whatever. And I was like, phenomenal business.
Yeah.
Makes more than a journalist probably.
For sure.
I mean, the amount of like EDM influencers and stuff that have their own rave lines and everything. Because if you see the outfits at EDC, for example, it's 100,000 people every day, more than that. And just like it's almost like a costume contest. Of course. But like in a fun way though, because there's that community aspect. So I do think there actually is a huge community in America, but it's
always going to be looked down upon.
Yeah, cause it's just because we're a little bit like the outcast a little bit, that's why it's weird that nowadays there is some culture clash at my shows because we have like the finance guys and stuff like that come in, but then you also have kind of the EDC fans and stuff, and it's all I love combining cultures and making things that don't make sense.
Well, you were an accountant.
Exactly.
Correct?
Exactly. Like my coworkers, when I would go listen to the music they probably listen to now, they're like, I'd come back from the show, they're like, what the hell were you just at? Who did you just see?
They thought you were weird,
Exactly.
and now they think you're cool.
Do you feel like, do the finance bros and the EDC kids hear the same things in your songs, or do you think they hear different things in your songs?
That's a good question. Yeah, like the EDC, I mean, they get so much nostalgia probably in the big vocals and the big melodies because it's kind of my tracks, and having Cascade on the album is like a EDC, like LA legend, in that they might not know his backstory and his catalog as much. But it's interesting because then, like I think you brought up Fred again earlier, where he like is very big in the kind of like the the normal typical 9-to-5 crowd.
We've been really struck by the rise of Fred again, as obviously as many hundreds of thousands and millions of people have. But I think there's something in the way that he talks about. Forget the music itself, because the music is quite good, but it's something in the way he discusses it, and there's an openness in his conversation about the music, and I think that ends up feeling welcoming to a lot of people who maybe would be like, oh, I don't know if I would go to a rave, or I don't know if I would go to a big nightclub, but there's something about when you watch him talk about it, like in an interview or like.
It's welcoming.
I think people are just like.
So you're talking about like the community of people that come, or the specific music itself?
I think there's a lot of people who are willing to go to a Fred Again show who maybe would not go to another quote unquote nightclub or dance music show because they maybe have seen him and they're like, that guy seems relatable. Like, I'm interested in how he's talking about the music, and it feels welcoming. Like even before you get to the records themselves,
which also have that spirit to them.
Right. He's building an ideology as much as he's building a sound.
That's interesting, yeah. And it's definitely the way he performs and presents the sound, because it kind of is more of a live, like a band. It doesn't feel like you're going to this rave that everyone just, has. Obviously, there's a big drug connotation with the kind of EDM music and everything too, where it's definitely could be more inviting. I see that too. And he, and just like his musicianship and everything too. Like, it's very fun to watch, and it's very impressive. So it's interesting though, because I think he has tapped a demographic that dance music doesn't normally tap. So, but there's many factors of it though.
But that's also why when we say EDM back, it's like it's because people who we know who don't listen to dance music at all will say Fred Again. They'll say John Summit. Like, I've had conversations with people who know about you who I've never heard them talk about dance music or club culture before. So I'm like, clearly you're doing something that's speaking outside of the community.
I have a question for you. So the thing, I get some hate comments online and everything too, and it's a lot of it is due to that, because I think that naturally we have a gatekeeping culture. Of
course.
Yeah.
And then,
Most scenes do.
Yeah, it's like I saw Adeza, for example, when they went to my college in 2013, and it was 200 people there, and then the next show is 5,000 people, and I'm a fan of Adeza, so I can say this is that I remember at the time though I was like, I remember when I saw him 200 people, and 5,000. I'm like, you guys listen, but then I was like, I'm just being a snob.
Sure.
It doesn't mean their music got bad or anything.
Yeah. I mean, no, but the dance music is interesting because it's at once both maybe the snobbiest music culture, but also
The most welcoming community.
the most welcoming one, and the one that other people look down on, like especially when you tip towards whatever we would call capital EDM, like that brand of it, where people think of that as cheap and just for doing drugs or whatever. But the Chicago stuff, the Detroit stuff, the house music you grew up on and that you seem to really care about is very much about that snobbiness, you're straddling those two worlds.
The amount of years and stuff it's taken me, probably like the last 3-4 years, to kind of win the Chicago fan base back first, because they're all kind of like, I remember when he was only doing underground, now he works with vocalists. Which I'm like,
How dare you?
Yeah, right. It doesn't make any sense, like, to me, but I get it from the outside though, because I was the same way.
But you're saying the hate comments that you get are basically like that, like, oh, he's reaching outside of the community. He's speaking to people who are not us now.
Yes,
so
because it's like multiple different groups. It feels like it's like going to one of my shows could kind of be like, there's multiple different tables who all sat in high school.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense. But
like the artsy kids, theater kids, the jocks and all that. But I love that because me personally would hate for a crowd to only be one niche.
And also, I mean, I think, look, in my high school, those kids never ended up at the same place. They never ended up at the same nightclub. They never even ended up at the same Madison Square Garden concert. If it was like a Madonna or whatever, you still wouldn't see all those kids. And this seems to be a moment where, for whatever reason, the finance bros are like, I see something in him.
Yes.
And then the dance music kids are like, I see something in him. And then the artsy kids are like, I see something in him. And they don't actually mind sitting next to each other.
You saw the meme recently that was the frat kids with the emo kids
that was
in
incredible.
the group photo.
Meme? So it was basically like a bunch of like Warped Tour emo type kids with like 5 or 6 like real frat bros in polo shirts. And the caption is like, the frat bros wanted to take a picture of us. They've never seen alternative people before.
That's funny.
It's very legitimately funny.
I could
John
see that.
That should be the flyer for the next tour.
Well, I mean, it's kind of similar to, my favorite artist in high school was Kanye, especially being from Chicago.
Yeah.
And he did his demographic in Chicago, was almost everybody, but it was like all just like high school suburban kids.
Sure. All
the way to like inner city South Side, so it's like everybody. And then I went to one of it was the Watch the Throne tour.
Yeah.
And this is like junior year of high school, was at United Center, and I saw people from all backgrounds. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Versus just like only being like in my little high school,
Did you have to do something for yourself to like kill off the inner snob?
Money.
That's good.
He had to check his bank account. I'm just kidding.
That's fine. Money's a good reason to kill your inner snob.
So it wasn't until it was just through the music is that I was so hesitant on releasing Deep End. And then
that was your first track with vocals.
Yeah. So I had tracks with vocals, but it was like spoken. It was like my own spoken word and stuff.
I see.
Yeah, we're Deep.
It was your first like pop hook.
Exactly. Because it was like this like poppy hook I found on Splice. And it was just so
royalty free.
It was completely royalty free. It was great. But I was so nervous in putting that out, and then my fans ended up loving it, and then it just was received so well that I think what killed my snobbiest was like, just the fan reception stuff, positive reinforcement.
Of course.
And then from there, starting adding piano, and then I was the first original vocal I did was What a Life a Year Later, which performed that live with Stevie Appleton at MSG, and it's one of my favorite records done. And then the chord pattern and the same patch we use is the same as Gypsy Woman, if you know that classic Chicago record. Yeah. And then so I felt like that was cool because I could still use my Chicago background sound.
You're still nodding back to the
other
then
side. Kind of doing some songwriting, and so it just slowly became to where I am now. So yeah.
You mentioned the nightlife component of things, the drugs, the drinking. Like, how are you looking out for your own health? Because like we had Lil Jon on this couch here. And he was talking about his years in the club scene and DJing and being an EDM guy. And he was basically like, he was like, once I put out shots, like
he was just like, I was twisted for a year.
Like there goes my liver. Like there goes my liver. Like how are you looking out for yourself?
My first record on my label was this 2022. There's this track called In Chicago, and the lyrics are literally just, I'm drunk and I'm high and I'm in Chicago. And then every time I play it, I'd be smoking on stage, drinking, and then everyone else is. And then I kind of did get this, big party brand going for a while. I had this like, my life is a bender slogan. Yeah. But the reason why I did that was I was like playing parties. So like, right, obviously when things are opening up in COVID, people are a little hesitant. And I'm like, screw this, like let's party, get out of your house, like that, you were
cheerleading,
basically
for socialization,
getting like, and this is like to my friends too. I'm like, get off the couch, get out of your house. Let's.
But did that take a toll on you?
Oh, big time, and I still like, dive into the vices, and the only way I can really get myself out of it is not being in the environment too much, and so I used to do like 6 club shows a week. I was doing 2022 was over 220 shows. That was nonstop. Where now I kind of like doing these big shows like the MSGs and stuff where, I'm on stage, it's a whole, and then you like practice for like weeks leading up, and I'm very involved in the production and all of that. But I think if I was a club DJ and that's all I was, like I couldn't, with the drugs and stuff, that would get to me.
So it's more downtime.
Yes.
Bigger show.
It's just getting yourself out of
bigger explosions and then more downtime.
Those shows end at 11:30 or 12. It's not like you're not playing till 7 in the morning. You don't have to.
Except when I'm in Europe though, then it's like every show was like 3 to 6 a.m. and it's really tough.
All right, so no moving to Berlin for your health.
Although we have to get you into Berghain.
That's big time. I would be the guy that gets at Berghain at like Thursday and leaves on Monday morning.
Right. Okay, so part 2, Popcast questionnaire. We're doing a little wild card action. We've got 25 questions on the big board.
Pre-written.
Yeah, we're not a freestyling. Okay. This is our top line writing. This is our top line. You go ahead and press.
Do I need to
give
show
us a
the
number.
Camera,
Yeah. Show us so we know lies.
Yeah, you can't
not lying. I'm actually spinning here.
Okay, let's see what we get.
Takes a second. I got 17.
All right. So whose social media page do you spend too much time on?
It's a good question.
He just went through 6 names that he's not allowed to say.
Tell the truth.
It's funny that there's certain artists who have actually blocked me before because they've told me that they kind of, when they see it too much, then it gets in their head for how to like market and stuff. And I'm the same way with, to bring up Fred again. Yeah. Is that he has very, because, Instagram is marketing at the end of the day. And then he really kind of helped popularize like FOMO marketing, which is, announcing an event the week of, and then having it go on sale and sell out immediately, and doing all the pop-ups and all of that. So I really think it's very interesting, like how he goes about versus the traditional pop star of just releasing a flyer of the 30 dates you're going to do next year.
Sure. And you feel yourself getting a little too competitive when you're scrolling his page?
Not too competitive, but when I try to get ideas, but then I don't like to reference one person too much because then you feel like you're going to naturally kind of
trend in that direction.
Exactly.
Kinda,
and but I love that he has such a unique brand that I wouldn't naturally copy myself at all. So. But
I want to add one thing, which is like one of the YouTube videos I was watching of yours earlier this week was you spent a week in Mykonos with Alex Earl. So like, I was like, that's a social media, like, that's
100%.
So like,
that's one of one marketing
universe. Cause like that ecosystem, like of Alex Earl and like those podcasters and those influencers, how connected are you in that scene?
So I don't look at that at all because like her whole target demographic is just like get ready with me, so it's like kind of college girls and whatever. But she lives in Miami, so I know her, and then friends with all her friends and everything. So that's like that came out naturally. But I don't really watch. Sorry, Alex, but I'm not really on your social media.
Apologies to Alex Earl, you're not scrolling on the Get Ready.
But yeah, what I mostly like for entertainment wise is like I'm really into comedy, and so I follow all their pages, and that's like what I try to listen and watch when I'm not thinking about music.
Who do we like?
Well, I was just partying with Andrew Schultz in Vegas a couple of days ago. Right. We had a hell of an after party.
Were we a Shane Gillis guy, a Matt Rife guy?
Yeah, I like Shane. No, sure. I mean, I'm a huge Shane Gillis fan. And then Adam Ray, I like a ton too. He does like the Biden impression with Shane as the Trump. And then I saw that whole Kill Tony at MSG. Thought that was sick. And I just have so much appreciation appreciation towards acts that can sell out an arena and all they have is their
Just
mic.
them.
Where, you know, I'm DJing and I have this crazy production and everything I work on, and it's still like obviously a ton of work, but to command an audience with just a mic is so impressive to me.
Sure.
All right, let's spin the wheel.
again.
Hit us
Okay.
again.
15.
15. Okay. Well, to this point, what would your first romantic partner say about you now?
My first one?
Your first one.
I reached out to her in January when I was finishing up the album.
Okay.
And I was just so introspective at the point because I'm never like emotional like that. I was like,
You were raw. You were
Yeah, I was very raw.
in a creative space.
and I
your
was just like,
bag,
I'm very happy about the time we spent together, and I don't think I'd be where I am now. With even though this is like before I was even like a DJ, so she probably was like, "Why the f- are you texting
Was
me?"
it a total cold text? Like after like a year? How long had it been since you had sent a text?
Probably a few years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a while.
You just fired it into the ether.
Yeah,
Just
it's
like-
kind of wild. Is that I hope I'm saying this right, but I think she works for the company, or it's one of the big fours, because I used to work for Ernst & Young doing accounting.
Yeah.
And now she works for them. So I thought that was
wow.
really cool. But
Yeah, what would she say about you?
like, he's kind of crazy.
Did she respond?
No, she responded. And she's like,
Okay.
"Oh yeah," like, it was so corporate. She's like, "We should grab a coffee sometime when you're in New York."
She sent you a Google Calendar invite?
yeah,
She
that's
put
my
time on your
She was like, I CC'd my assistant.
literally. So,
But
yeah,
you sent this note because you were feeling emotion, like you were feeling like you wanted to kind of pay homage to who you were in order to get to this.
well,
place.
I was getting, because I was like, oh my god, like it was like when I was kind of wrapping up the album, like this, I was like so proud of it, and then I was getting very introspective of how I even got there, and then I did that to the other ex, because I only had 2 long-term girlfriends, and the other ex was the one that kind of introduced me to the underground, and that Detroit
wow.
party, she's the one that told me like we should go to this one.
Oh, wow.
For Draver. So I was like, hey, I don't think, you know, and it was just, I was just genuinely feeling that, and then. Yeah, so
You
like,
were in your Drake bag. You were just like,
I guess so.
Just running through the contacts.
the thing is, I never ever do that though. So I
Good
think
thing you
at
only had
first-
2 serious exes.
They're like the first thing they're like, "Is everything okay?" I'm like, "Trust me, it's fine."
how funny.
Let's
All
hit the wheel.
23.
We sort of touched on this
We
earlier.
kind of know the answer to this.
When was the last time you got recognized?
Yeah, so on the street here in New York, it was funny. I just posted a picture of me drinking a coffee outside, and within like a minute, this guy came down and he's like, "Hey, working in commercial banking, and you know your story is very inspiring, and now I DJ as well." You know, all while he's in his professional work attire. So
Wow.
I thought that was actually really cool.
Yeah,
Did
that's
he
a good
offer
one.
you a sort of a premium mortgage rate?
I wish, but he told
5% for a 30-year fix? Like, was he trying to hook you up?
I wish. No, he did say he's going to send a demo to my label though, so which means he's legit, you know,
He was
producing
going
and stuff.
for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was awesome.
That's cool. That's
If
a good
any
one.
Popcast fans want to give me a preferred mortgage rate, though, I'd be open to having the conversation. That's all I'm saying. While we're here, that's the real perks of celebrity.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Under premium mortgage rates.
Not getting into the gospel, but
No, that's all right. But hey, if I'm paying 4% over 30 years, no problem. All right, let's spin it. Let's go.
6.
Number 6. Okay, this one I like. I wrote this one. It's not that complicated. But it got me thinking because I drive a lot. I keep a car in New York. Tell us about your first car. And also, was there any relationship between having a car and music for you?
Yeah, so my first car, my only car, was a Mazda 3, 2012. I sold it when I moved to Miami like a year and a half ago. But every single car test was done in that car, which is every single record. It had this like pimped out Bose sound system. And then because I was never in the club that much because I was just producing, there was like 2 years I really
So
didn't
you
do
put
anything.
the system in. Did it come with the system or you put the system in the car?
It was like I bought it used.
Yeah.
And then I just looked for one that had a good system.
Sure.
And then, so that was the relationship I had with it because I only had like 15,000 miles when I sold it because I never drove. But I would just sit in it every day listening to my records.
That's
and if
funny.
it sounded good in there, I knew it'd sound good in the club. So
Sure.
I do miss it.
But you don't want a car in Miami?
Yeah, what's your next car?
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I don't.
You don't really need
I don't
one.
need one.
Yeah.
The driving in Miami scares me a little bit because I feel like I'm in an international country and there's not too many rules.
it is lightly lawless.
And then, I just now I haven't driven in so long that I just trust Uber more.
But that's crazy that you sold that car with 15,000 miles.
Yeah,
And it
'cause
was used when you bought it.
Yep.
Very wild. Very
I
wild.
barely drove it all.
Very wild.
Spin the wheel.
All right, we got 9.
When's the last time something didn't go your way in your career, and how did you deal with it?
That's a tough one.
And you can't say everything's gone your
Yeah,
way.
he's like, I win so much, I don't remember the losses.
Well, one thing to bring up, I guess, so my team probably wouldn't be too happy me bringing this up, but my original label name was called Off the Grid. And then that ended up being, and it was like doing very successful and stuff. And then it ended up being a name of like a kind of a smaller festival out in California that had, and then they had like the copyright to it and the trademark to it. And then I was very immature at the time. And this is only like a couple of years back, but you know, I thought they were kind of just coming for my business for no reason, and I didn't actually look into how like invested they were personally. I just saw that it was just like a small festival. I'm like, what did they just want my money,
right?
Blah blah. Because I just started making money at the time, and then so I kind of like you know was upset on Twitter and everything, and then actually met the guy, and then realized I'm like, oh, this is like his pride and joy, and they have such an incredible community and all this stuff, and then I saw it from his lens, and that was kind of a big sobering moment for me.
So you had to change the name of your label.
Yeah, and so then I changed it to Experts Only, which I like even better because it has in the logo too, the double black diamond. I named myself Summit because of my love of skiing. Me and my family would go every year, and and then now we throw a festival out in Vail. We're gonna do cool. We're gonna do Tahoe next year too. So it ended up being a blessing in disguise.
Do you have to play? Are you going to play this gentleman's festival at any point?
To make up for your Twitter rant?
So I kind of want to, and then I was gonna. They have a Burning Man camp, and I usually go, and I didn't go this year. But if I was at Burning Man, then yes,
you'll pull up to Off the Grid.
Yeah, that'd be epic.
I love.
And I think enough time has passed over now.
Everybody's peace. It's all copacetic.
Exactly.
I like that.
All right, hit us with another number.
3.
What did you inherit from your parents in a true, like as a person? And what are things that they didn't teach you that you've had to learn on your own?
First of all, my mom's super creative. She loves writing. She loves reading, and she's very emotionally intelligent, and she very much expresses herself. And so I feel like that helps a lot with writing and writing music and stuff like that. Is she in
a creative field? Like, is she?
No, I mean, she does real estate, but then she just has like so many like passions and hobbies and stuff like that. Where and then they're always playing music in the house stuff too. And my dad absolutely loves live concerts, and he's a pilot for American.
Oh wow!
And so we were. So
you got that family pass.
You've
seen the world.
I don't need sky miles. I got the family pass.
But he's like loves like traveling and stuff, and then really kind of put that onto me where I'm in the plane half my life now with touring and stuff, but I'm used to it. And he's a very entertaining guy too, where half of what I do is entertainment. I love throwing a good party, and that kind of comes from the parents a little bit.
All right, let's spin it up.
Number 12.
Has becoming successful made you want more, or do you have a healthy regard for the appetites of fame?
In regards to fame, that's a consequence of success. I've never really cared too much in that aspect because I'm as famous as I really want to be. But the thing is that I want my music and my art to reach more people. And by being more famous and stuff, then that's like a result of that. So I guess I do want it in that aspect. But the more success I have, it's just a snowball effect, and it's a high, really. And I get off the stage at MSG. I'm not celebrating. I'm like, all right, next year we're gonna do blah blah blah, and we're trying to think of how to do it bigger and better, but mostly better. Cause
no afterglow.
No, well then I did a 3-hour after party set. So I played for 8 hours, but I was immediately after my set making the next set, and then it's always kind of and it does exhaust my team a little bit because they are like sometimes like, hey man, like sit down and enjoy what you've created. I'm like, I'll do that eventually.
And with that fame and success, like, do you have more appetites? Is it more drinking, more buying stuff, more houses, more cars, more like? Do you feel your appetites in that sense increasing?
It's in the creative side of things where I know that I want to do another album, and I want to probably do a short film to go along with the album, and then I want to get in more making music videos. And now I'm getting into fashion too. And, expanding the label. And I'm going to get very ambitious with Experts Only. I want that to be, like a big powerhouse dance label because I think it's so cool to be able to put other artists on that's not just me. But I bought my condo like a year and a half ago. I haven't paid for anything since. And maybe I'll get a car next. But yeah, I'm very frugal.
Or maybe a car with no wheels since you don't drive. You just want a sound test.
Yeah, literally.
It's just a car with just like
a
parking in the
pimped out sound
parking.
system.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't have to run.
No, it doesn't have to run at all.
But and then I'm very frugal when it comes to money because that's how my
Because you're an accountant.
was. And I was an accountant.
Yo, actually, your side for like obviously you have a label. That's great. You make your own music. That's great. Maybe your true side business should be accounting services for musicians.
You know, that sounds like a very smart thing. There's nothing I would rather do less. But great
Okay,
idea.
fair. If somebody else wants that job,
Yeah.
it's available. Okay, last 2 spins.
Alrighty. 22. Oh no.
No, it's a great question.
That's
Come
a
on.
great question. Are you or have you ever been on Raya?
Yes, I have been, but that was when I wasn't like famous. It was like when I first got my blue check in like 2020,
Yeah.
and I had like 10,000 Instagram followers at the time.
Sure.
And then not many girls on there really cared about me.
They weren't ready?
No.
No.
So yeah, I flopped a lot on there, and I said accept, I'm not using it again. And
Might be time for a return.
Yeah, it might be time to get back on it.
maybe it is. I don't know.
We'll see how your meeting goes with your accountant X.
Yeah, how the coffee goes.
But that's COVID era. You're just like starting to get a little
then I'm
a
also
little motion.
I'm also like stuck at home 24/7. So I'm like, all right, maybe I will just be swiping. But now, I mean, I like to meet people like in a natural sense and stuff. So
At 4 a.m. at Bergen. as we
Where
When you
everyone
can't
meets
even
their
see
life
them.
partner.
yeah, absolutely. It's where Joe met his wife.
That's funny.
Because I got in.
What?
Because I got in.
No, yeah.
Oh,
Maybe that's why. I don't.
All right, we got one more spin.
All right. It is. That's funny. 13.
Number 13. What are you good at besides what you do for a living?
Very good question. I was a cross country runner in high school, and I wasn't the best or anything, but like I got in it my sophomore year and did like a 9-minute mile, and I was the slowest guy on the team. And then by the end of senior year, I was running a 4:30 mile, which to me,
Wow.
I'm not winning state with that, but it was decently fast.
But you cut your time in half, basically.
Yes.
That's impressive to me.
So I
A
guess
man who's never run a mile.
I've seen him on.
But then I guess I do this in my job though. But that's when I do like the marathon sets and that stuff. I really.
You think it's the same? You think it accesses some same part of your body, basically?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I did the
Endurance.
Navy Yard, I guess it's called the Storehouse now. And then like the last like hour of that, because that was my 8th hour DJing that night. I didn't sleep for the 2 nights prior. And then I had like the 4 pop-ups before that all week.
Sure.
Is that like I like basically like just had to totally go in the zone because I thought I was gonna pass out during the set.
Sure.
So I guess that's the endurance of that. But yeah, I don't really have any hobbies outside of what I do, which is why I think I work so hard and I'm so nonstop. So if any suggestions.
Well, it sounds like you need hydration. It sounds like we got to get you invested maybe in a water company or something.
I'm talking to a couple of those
a couple
companies.
electrolyte companies.
Yeah.
Maybe a protein chip?
Maybe a protein. We're gonna do before we get to snack of the week because everybody who sits on the couch has to participate. We do snack of the week every show,
Okay.
guests included. The last question: have you lied to us at all today?
Have I lied to you guys at all today?
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
You sure?
Did I say something?
No, I just wanted to press. I'm just pressing.
No, I really don't think I have.
Okay.
I think you came across as quite forforthing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But if you think about something that you lied about, just text us later. Let us know. We'll accept a late answer.
No, yeah.
Every week on Popcast, we try a snack. We rate the snack. We have legendary sweet tooths, but this is a savory snack you picked from the pantry.
This is a sweet and a savory
It is a
snack.
sweet and a savory snack. I bought
This is a snack that I don't think anyone's ever ate before.
I do not. I think we're going to be the first people to ever eat
Show me the
this.
front of it again. I'm trying to remember where I think I got it on Court Street, like kind of like not far from the Chipotle on Court Street.
Okay.
In one of those like one of the bodegas in the middle of the
Sure.
street.
Yep.
I was there like at 10 p.m. I think I just never saw that brand before. And
We
also
might be
it's
the
a
first to
chicken-
review this.
Yeah.
Literally, yes, the first package
Their entire
opened
company
in America.
relies on this review.
Yes.
Sorry, guys.
So these are Wild brand. Wild spelled like Olivia.
Not Wilde?
Could be Wilde.
Wow.
Sure. I said wild
Wilde,
like
I don't know.
Olivia,
Could be
but
German.
protein chips. The 13 grams of protein per bag. And these are
protein
chicken
bar.
and waffles flavored.
It seemed so perverse to have a chicken and waffles flavored chip that I was like, this is obviously something we got to try
Yeah.
on the show. It's
Lay's
extremely
Where does the
did,
protein
Lay's
come
did
from?
chicken and
Yeah,
waffles.
where's the protein come from?
Well, I can tell you because it says chicken breast, check mark. Egg
Whoa.
whites, check mark. Chicken bone broth, check mark.
Wow.
In the
Real
chip.
ingredients.
In the chip.
Real
How
ingredients.
does that work?
We're about to find out.
This is really
You
dumb.
We
don't
need to do a how it's
remember-
made episode on this.
Yeah,
episode,
sure.
so I
seriously.
always
You don't
wanna watch
remember Lay's chicken and waffles limited edition flavor?
I do, but I always assumed it was like a dust sprinkle flavor, not actual chicken shredded up into a chip.
it. In college,
Alright.
we had chicken and waffle flavored vodka.
Wow.
It's like
How
a
do you
$6
even-
handle. I don't know. It's
A $6 handle,
Yeah,
you
it's
said?
disgusting. It was
Jesus.
disgusting.
I don't even drink it. I know that's disgusting.
All right. I'm gonna eat one of these. I just smelled the bag. I'm gonna take one and
Yeah, you have
pass
to
it.
smell. Like
Yeah.
smelling is important.
Yeah.
It's part of the review. It's like,
You know,
it's like
the
we're like
nose,
testing
the
a wine.
nose eats first. Yeah.
The smell is quite good.
Smells good.
I mean, I am partial to a
Are we all eating at the same
syrup
time?
flavor.
I'm gonna
yeah,
go
yeah,
too.
yeah, we're
I'm
all-
partial to a syrup flavor. I think I probably mentioned this on the show. Waffle Crisp, one of the great cereals of all time.
Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Smells like
how do
waffle
they fit
crisp.
chicken and broth and all of this into such a thin
Where's
chip?
where's the broth?
Yeah.
Okay, it's very syrup forward.
Yeah.
As a smell.
Yeah.
It's better than being chicken
It's
forward.
giving. I mean, it's
It'd be
giving
weird.
Waffle. It is giving Waffle House.
Yeah.
It's giving Waffle House.
Yeah. All right. You ready?
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to you. Cheers to you for snack of the week and for sitting through the Popcast questionnaire.
Hey, it was a great time.
Appreciate
Great
it.
time. All right.
Aftertaste is
Starts
good.
on syrup, transitions to chicken, and then
broth.
Gets to cardboard.
and then gets to coal.
I was really liking it the first second.
it really, it's like it is three distinct phases. It starts
Wow.
sweet, it gets like unctuous, and then it's very dry.
The
on
end tastes
back.
like ashes. Oof. That is. You want to eat more because you want to erase the aftertaste.
Literally, because it was good again the second chip, and then it's bad.
I'm gonna be really honest. If I could score the three steps,
Yeah.
it would be like 7.5, 4.5, 1.
One. I don't think the aftertaste can possibly be a one. To me, that is a big old zero.
Oh, you think
Yeah,
it's
it's
straight up
really
zero?
bad.
No, I
It's
mean
really
the
bad.
whole chip. I'm gonna say that's like a 3 out of 10.
It ends. I think it's a 2 as a chip.
I kind of want to recommend it because it's an experience. It's
perverse.
like
It
watching
is
like
an
a bad
experience.
like horror film, but like you just have to watch it. So that's why I give it a 4.
Wow. Look, all I'm saying is if you go purchase these chips and you feel let down,
Yeah.
John Summit let you down.
I would
It's an
rather
experience.
get my 13 grams of protein elsewhere.
Yeah, fair.
This is great. These food scientists,
They're on one.
they should be in prison.
You should respect like how many people had to check off on this to get it to the point where it is now.
This is the best they could possibly
Yeah.
get it to taste.
I wish I was at that board meeting.
This is it's dusty.
I am gonna
dusty.
eat the dust off my fingers because I want the sweetness
Christ.
instead of the bitterness of the chip.
One of our worst snacks in recent memory. I'm sorry you had to be here, but you did pick it. To
Yeah.
be fair, so we all want that journey together. John Summit, thanks for coming on Popcast.
Thank you for having me. That was awesome.
We didn't get to talk about Marshall Jefferson, but maybe someday we'll talk
Yeah,
about
the
Marshall
legend.
Jefferson. We'll do it.
Yeah.
That's our show. nytimes.com/popcast every week. YouTube.com, TikTok, Instagram, Popcast Deluxe. You know where to find us. Jamie Heffitz is in the room. Pedro Rosado is at home. We'll see you next week.